Hey everybody, guess what? We are back. This is African Frame Podcast. I'm not alone as usual. I am with Rob Sibeko, a writer, director, a world builder. And yeah, we're just gonna be trying something else today. We're gonna be just, chopping it up, talking about some of the things that we like, and one of them is actually writing. The I guess this is an art form that is hardly spoken about. I mean, when you look at films, the things that people usually talk about is special effects, actors, or directors. People hardly talk about writers and what writers have to go through in order to bring a good product, whether it's a movie, book, series, and so on. So we just wanted to, dive a bit deeper into that field and see if maybe we can teach you guys a few things, or just, yeah, you guys can just hear what we think about that avenue when it comes to communication and the film industry, or just, yeah, any other industry that's related to writing as a whole. Rob, do you want to say something before we start?
Nothing much. Just welcome, guys. Nice to see you guys. Yeah.
Cool.
Let's go.
So, I mean, look, I've heard a few people say this, and I mean, it's true. Initially, I mean, language, is an expression, right? People had to express themselves in a certain way. So language came about, and from there, storytelling came about. People would talk about like the fire and stuff, and someone decided to write. I mean, I'm sure before it was like cave paintings and all of that to convey a message, but eventually got to paper.
Yes.
Gutenberg press, and then Gutenberg did that whole print thing.
Yes.
Actually, Stephen Fry, I think he does mention. I think there is a documentary about the Gutenberg press, and over time, I mean, now it's digital, but
because in the past it used to be priests. Priests would basically, because actually there was a lot more reading. Like in the medieval days, there was actually a lot more reading than you'd think. The only problem was it was basically just Bibles, because only one person. Because remember, you'd have to sit there and then copy a book over and over again, and the only people who had time to do that were monks. And obviously, the monks are not going to write about Playboy magazine, so they're going to write about the Bible. So
Right.
they'd repeat the Bible over and over again. And so actually, a lot of medieval houses would actually learn how to read because they had a Bible on them. Which is something I learned about. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. But then it makes me wonder when fiction came about, because you know what I mean? Like, okay, so
because the way I see it is, so that would be a nobility thing. The way I see it is, so yeah, let's say one of us were to write a book, and then we'd write the book, and then you'd sell that to a noble person, and then they'd be like, hot damn, this is fire, and they keep it in the family line, and that book would be worth legitimate money,
right?
Because it was so hard to make, and it was special. And
and obviously that would trickle down to like plays like around Shakespearean era, where now you had actors having to portray the characters that have been written down.
Well, yes. Well, I would like to think the cart becomes. I would actually say I would say the plays came first. I would say.
Oh, okay. So you think improv came first?
Well, yeah, of course, yes. I mean, coming back from the campfire to retell the story of what just happened.
Ah, right.
And also just, I mean, hell, there was this comedian who was talking about, I think it was Dylan Moran, was like, kids ask you the strangest questions, so you have to make up, you fill the gaps with whatever, because you don't actually have real answers. I'm sure those were the first stories, you know what I mean?
Right. Ah, okay. I mean, would you say fiction is a lie, or is just a reality in someone else's mind? Like, what is reality? Okay, there is virtual reality, right? But what do you consider fiction without the virtual aspect of it?
I think
Would
you
you
have to
say?
elaborate. What do you mean?
Okay, let me put it like this. When I talk about when I make a story about this guy who's a chef and is in his 30s, stays in Santon, has two girlfriends and a dog. I mean, I'm just making it up as I go, but is that a lie because that person doesn't exist, or could it just be that actually does there actually is someone like that? It's just that I haven't met them yet. I don't know how to explain it to you. Do you think there's a like a
Um,
missing element
okay,
to it,
this
or
is
is just
actually it. I think if I understand you correctly, I think this is a discussion a lot of people are having right now. This is the
hmm,
whole the Matrix kind of question, the
yes,
simulacrum, um, where ironically the religious community are the ones who are like, no, stop that shit, because what you end up doing is you end up putting yourself in a situation where you go so deep into this whole thing that things that are objectively real stop being real, and you start treating
ah,
them like they can't be real. And then,
right,
and the thing is, when you build stuff off a wrong, it's the word supposition, well, with a wrong starting point, right? What you could end
mm,
up doing is causing a lot of damage. Like if you build a bridge, but like on soft sand, do you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's one of those like communist issues actually with communism was that they believed that you could just dismiss the past. What's that thing Kamala Harris says? I by forgetting what was, I can do what is. I forgot how it goes, but
right.
that thing. So you just forget the past in order to think what you get, and then you think you can just replace the realities of the past and today, and then what ends up happening is you end up getting punished because what you're trying to change doesn't actually change, and eventually you have to face it.
So if it's okay, I get you. So if yeah, it's not real, where do these ideas come from then, bro? Like, how is it that you have individuals who are able to come up with the worlds and characters and villains and animals and monsters, ghouls and these things? Like, what are they like coming up with Hogwarts, bro? And the rules of Hogwarts and the history of Hogwarts. Where does that come from?
No, it
It's
comes from you. The way I see it, the way I see it is, I think Jordan Peterson talks about this, where if you're in the dark and then you hear,
right.
you're gonna fill that gap. The human brain, right,
Ah,
is an amazing tool. So
right,
what it does is it tries its best to fill the gaps that you create.
right.
So if you feel negative about yourself, then your brain, who's on your side, is gonna be like, "Why? Yes, you are that negative thing about you," and and so try and help you out with that until you spiral into depression and die.
Right, right, right,
So,
right.
in a way, what happens is, again, you see a void, and then, I believe John Peters talked about how, in the past we filled the night sky to explain the stars with gods. Um,
Yes, I think I saw a clip like that, but I don't think it was
yes,
him saying it. But I
yeah,
did see a
and
clip like
then the idea of the whole Nietzsche thing was that, was the problem was that we got rid of our gods and then replaced them with nothing, and that caused a whole new problem. But the whole Nietzschean thing, because so it goes on so many levels. But the whole idea is we all end up turning on each other because the things we used to before are now gone. There's this guy, I think his name is Salman, not Salman Rushdie. I forgot his name. But he's like a theologist person. He likes to examine different religions. I forgot his name, but he talks
Sadhguru.
about how. Say,
Sadhguru.
nah. But he was like some theologist speaker. But anyway, he was talking about how religion is actually technically a language. And I think that's true. I think I've discussed with you before where we talk about how I've told you that sometimes a lie is the best way to tell the truth. Um,
How so?
sure. Good example. The lie we tell kids to make them do stuff. Like my sister once told me they told her once, if you eat standing up, your knees will get fat. And then you're like, oh, I know a guy where that happened, and you fill up the story, right? And now that kid hears that story and then believes what you're saying. It adds color. And now that kid believes it for a fact now.
That's a guy, bro. It says that his mom told him that if he drinks milk straight from the carton, he's gonna die. Yeah. That dude never tried that age, dog. I think until he was in college or something. Like since he was a kid, until he was in college, he believed that if he was to drink milk straight from the carton, dog, he would die.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very simplistic version, but yes, that's exactly right. But most of the time, I knew a guy, and that's why, ironically, that's why ladies, they say the pen is mightier than the sword.
Yeah.
So, like, men, we have physical power, right? And John talks about how, like, women have the power of gossip, right? They can fill those stories, not by necessarily lying, but by telling, like, stories of truths. And that builds your reputation and crushes your reputation. And that becomes, like, the dichotomy of, like, male and female. We may have muscle, but they have more words than us sometimes. And then that can kind of balances itself out, because they end up with two different sets of strength, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
Yeah. So I think
there is a lot of truth into this whole the pen is mightier than the sword thing, because we are surrounded by marketing all the time, bro. Yes. And marketing is ultimately communication, right? Yes. Between the consumer and the seller.
Yes.
And to see how powerful that is that you see it everywhere. Like the fact that you see it everywhere and affects the way you think. You're able to even splurge on money that you didn't even plan on splurging on.
Yeah.
Shows you the power of the pen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason we started this, this was a form of marketing for my book. Like, I was trying to market my book. How could I talk about my book? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And that's how this grows, and et cetera, et cetera. Just something else. I don't want to turn this into a business episode, but I think we need to actually discuss that between ourselves. Like, how can we push ourselves? Because someone said something very clever, actually. Who said, 3/4 of their entire budget. The budget of what you're doing should be 20% of the total budget of everything you're doing, because the other 80% should belong to marketing. So in other words, however amount of money you're spending on this, multiply it by 4, that should be a marketing budget.
Right.
And I think that's very fascinating, because that's power of word of mouth, which, funny enough, in itself has its own storytelling elements. Because if you listen to marketing people talk, they say your stuff has to tell a story. It can't be, Bob's thing is good. No, Bob's thing has to, like. And if you think about the kid's story, and you tie it to this, I love how all these things are connected. Tie it to this, what ends up happening is you end up with an element of it makes more sense. Put it like that. That kid story that I told you about, the fat knees producing so and so, it produces an energy without the kid. It makes it unforgettable. And marketers kind of understand that on some level, so then they know how to manipulate that themselves to make their items unforgettable too. And that's successful marketing.
Listening to this podcast called Founders, and this guy was talking about how Warren Buffett was saying that when you go to like a DVD store, for instance, like if a mother goes to a DVD store to go either rent out a DVD or to buy a DVD, and they see something from 20th Century Fox or Paramount or whatever versus a Disney, what do you think the mother would buy? The mother would buy a Disney DVD.
Yes.
Because of the idea that they have of Disney whenever they see a Disney product.
Because there's a hidden promise within Disney.
Right.
I mean, one can argue they're losing that promise right now. Same thing with Star Wars. They lose the promise. There was a promise there, and it's almost gone.
Yeah, maybe we should get into it, because in as much as there is writing and there are different demographics, but there's always an idea associated with a specific brand. For instance, with Disney, it's about magic, right? Mm-hmm. The power of magic, whether it's Tinkerbell or Mickey Mouse when he's doing what's the thing? Fantasia.
Yes.
The fairy godmother, Cinderella, Frozen with powers.
Hmm.
Uh, there's always a magical element to Disneyland. It's like a dream come true of sorts.
True, 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 true. But I think the strongest thing is about the family orientation, because you have to remember something. What was that famous musical? We're all in this together.
High
Da, da.
School, High School Musical.
There we go. Yes. High School Musical didn't have magic, but it still had that family element to it.
Yes.
But I do agree that magic is vital, especially for their cartoons. I think if we just
Yeah.
listen to a bunch of cartoon people just doing stuff, we'd lose an element of it, of everything, of kid.
Right.
Yeah, we'd lose something there. But
Yeah. Not. It's look, the primary target audience was kids for sure.
oh yeah,
For
but
for decades, it was the kids.
oh yeah, but I mean, they still managed to balance things where
Yeah.
it's not baby nonsense like Minions. I mean, what's it?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
it? Hamlet is Lion King. Lion King is a remake of Hamlet. That's crazy
Yeah.
when you
And
actually think about it.
yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Mm.
And I
And
think yeah.
they made it work.
Oh, dude, they didn't just make it work. They rocked their house with that shit.
Mm.
It's so incredible. Um, but that's another thing. Like, what does it take to like? But how does that impact us as artists?
What?
What does that mean for us as artists, though? Remember,
What do you mean?
we're not just out here trying to look at Disney. Remember, we're not just consumers. We're producers. Me and you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So how does that impact us?
How does what impact
What
us? That's what I'm trying to
the
understand.
message? What message are you trying to send? What is the Kutso brand?
For me, man, Mr. Extrodin, ultimately what it's about, ultimately, to be honest with you, the reason I'm pushing this, the reason I'm even doing this in the first place, whether it's the comic books that I'm doing or the animated series that I want to do or live action films that I want to do or even this podcast,
Hmm.
my intention is to ultimately inspire. You know when they say you must pass something forward?
Yeah.
Let's say someone did a good deed and when you're trying to pay them back, they're like, no, just pass it forward. That's basically what I'm doing. Because what happened with me was I was so inspired by Aladdin as a kid
Hmm.
and Jungle Book as a kid. I think I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know, 6, 7. So I was at a boarding school, and every single night without fail, they used to play a Disney movie. It was either Aladdin,
Yeah.
Jungle Book, or any of those Disney classics at the time.
Yeah.
But something about Aladdin really, really struck a chord. It was Aladdin and Jungle Book. Jungle Book, it was Baloo, man. There was something about Baloo that I really liked as a kid.
Nice.
And ever since then, dog, that level of dopamine that I received from those movies has has inspire another child to feel what I felt when I was a kid. You
Mm.
know, so to pass forward that same level of dopamine that I got as a kid, because for me, man, I guess from the time I started understand being aware of who I am as a person, there's a point where you're like, oh, I'm alive. From that
Yeah.
moment,
You click into existence, kind of thing. Yes.
from that moment until maybe I reached maybe like 25,
Hmm.
that feeling was constantly there. That feeling that I got it when I was a kid. So for me, it's like I need to come up with compelling characters, stories that will resonate with someone for the rest of their lives, where nothing else really matters. Like going back to this founders podcast that I was listening to earlier,
Hmm.
almost every great individual that you know on the planet, someone who's been great, an icon or whoever, they dedicated a lot of hours into whatever it is that really, really resonated with them. They had so much zeal for whatever it is that they were doing that it was near impossible for them not to Like it was nearly impossible for them to fail. Like they had to just make it. They had to just make it. You know? Yeah.
Now,
So
but now, what about us? We're South Africans. I'm sure those founders are talking about Americans. So how does a South African make it? How do you pass it forward?
mm, how did Mandela make it, bro? So my
Well,
thing is,
mhm.
it has a lot to do with hours that you put in. It has a lot to do with understanding those who did it before you,
Okay.
and it also has a lot to do with you being consistent in it, right? Like you have to be extremely consistent in it. Like how we are. I mean, I'm sure almost every day you can see on the channel that there's something coming out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yes. It's
so
fantastic.
so
Yeah.
so it's like a death do us part thing.
Mhm.
Me and the thing that really drives me, only death will really do us part. Um, so for me, it's like whoever is inspired by what, because you never really know. It's just that people don't comment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But whoever really is inspired and goes to our channel every day, that's the person that this is all of. That's all for. Whoever keeps going to the YouTube channel or to your TikTok account
Mhm.
or to whoever, like when they see you, it's like you are the Morpheus in their life. Ever since you've been there in their life, Chief, nothing has ever been the same. That's what it's about for me.
I hear that. That's deep, man.
What's your take?
I think that was beautiful, man. I think that's a deep take. I mean, I do love the idea of passing it forward. Definitely something I've thought about. For me, it's all about making a difference. Because
Okay.
good example being like Tolkien. I mean, the man was a researcher, studied, spent his whole life, fought in a war, um, put in basically dedicated his whole life to one piece of writing, which was his universe. And then
Mm.
he basically rocked the world with it, created entire thoughts of thinking, managed to use his language skills to improve everything. I mean, a book can really change the world. I mean, it really can. A
Yeah.
good story can change the world. It absolutely
Right.
can. It's more of a question of can you, and then of course you've ever heard the story of I tried to change the world, but I couldn't. I tried to change my country, but I couldn't. I tried to change my neighborhood, but I couldn't. But when I changed myself, everything changed. The whole world
Mm.
changed.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what it's about, where you gotta like, try and like evolve yourself constantly until you reach that level. And I
Exactly.
think as much as I want to like be like, oh, press a button and the world has changed, like some isekai character, it's really just all about leveling up consistently. And my God,
Yeah.
is consistency hard, eh?
Yeah. No, consistency is not a joke, bro. It's not a joke.
Yep, and I've been trying to create new systems to keep myself going. My new one is doing okay though. Um,
Mm.
the one I've been doing where I basically have a journal where I write down everything I do, like, and then I
Yeah,
tick it
you've
down.
been doing that, have you
Yeah,
not?
sorry,
You've been doing that though.
no, not really. This is only something we're doing for the last week. And when I say write down everything I do, I mean like literally write down individual things. Like
Oh,
I call it my goal page, where I just like, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm listening.
Yeah, for the last 2 weeks, I've been basically putting in what's it, 5 pages of writing. Like if I'm like, okay, gotta promote myself on Instagram, get that stuff ready. Invested in this tablet, it's working out really nicely for me right now. I'm producing more output, and like I can't like for example, and I've noticed because I've been doing this, right? Because you keep
Yeah.
track of all the little things, what ends up happening is you start. It's like when you go to the gym, right? And you work out and you don't think you're doing anything. You don't
Yeah.
see any gains, so you stop.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
right now, with me doing this, I'm seeing gains. I went
Yeah.
from having like what 20 views to
Yeah.
having like right now my Instagram is 246, from 20 to 246 in in 2 weeks of continuous effort. Like, I'm crazy proud of that.
I understand. I've been doing what you're saying now. I've been doing that since last year.
Okay.
It's part and parcel of why you see a lot of content on the channels. It's because I already came up with like a plan to sort of
get things going.
Yeah, get things going. So going back to writing, I mean, okay, I'll use directors as an example. There's a video that I saw, I think it was last year, where they were talking about how some of the greatest directors of our time, they don't even want to show you their first projects that they did because they think it is nonsense. But they did it anyway, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like going back to the writing thing. By the time, who's this? By the time whoever you know who has a successful book became successful, I'm sure that there's so many books. I mean, who's this? Who was I? Quentin Tarantino. Man, the guy was writing so many things. And I think you're the one that was telling me about Kubrick, that he would feel like
there's entire libraries,
entire libraries
of him like working out what he was doing. He was
exactly.
such a perfectionist.
So there is, Kurosawa. There's a video, there's an interview that he did a long time ago, and he was asked, like, what advice would you give young writers? And he said, look, write with a pencil and a paper. Write. Don't be lazy. Write all the time. You know, and I feel like that's where inspiration, you know, I feel like that's the source right there for inspiration, man.
Definitely, because yeah.
No, please continue.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, because I think you unlock things. The human brain, at least, you know what? Before I start ranting about Gen Z, I feel like for normal people, the human brain, like, you start doing stuff, right? And the human brain wants to be like, yo, man, this is taking long. Is there an easier way of doing this? And you don't look for shortcuts, but you look for efficiencies. You know what I mean? Like, and honest to God, technology is so sweet right now that it's offering up efficiencies left, right, and center. You just got to be able to catch hold of them. And I think the whole idea is, when you basically, my idea is, it's like a video game. So you write, you work, right? And then you look for these efficiencies. You start realizing you're good at this, start realizing you're bad at this, and you start, without even realizing it, you start to notice patterns that are problems or patterns that are good things. And before you know it, you start unlocking stuff like a video game character. And before you know it, you're leveling up. It's actually kind of crazy. Good example being like with our show. Remember that whole thing where I was like the 2-hour breakdown where I broke the thing down into quarters? I'm still really proud of that. I learned that while, like, I think I officially unlocked it when we were doing the mummy one. I just wish I
think you're gonna have to explain what you're talking about. I'm not sure. What do you mean?
Okay, do you remember the breakdown of the mummy that we did? Brendan Fraser.
Well, I remember the mummy. I'm just trying to understand the breakdown, because we did it was a 2-parter.
Yes. Okay. What's it? But anyway, it doesn't matter. Basically, I told you that it broke out into 4. It was a 2-hour movie, and it broke out into 4 quarters. First half, and each half was its own movie. 1 hour was a movie, and then 1 hour was a movie. And I broke down how at the 2 hours, so 1 hour is the halfway mark, and half an hour is the quarter mark. And inside each quarter, and had different events that happened in an exact kind of way, but the value of those events, the emotional value, changed. But the actual, at the 15-minute mark, they'd set up a goal. No, immediately they'd set up a goal. 15 mark, the goal would be challenged, and they'd either win or lose that goal. Then you hit the halfway mark, and then the halfway mark kind of hits the resolution of that goal before they build up to the next goal, and then it hits a high or a low point, and then it crosses over to the middle of it, and then the movie ends and then the first hour ends like an actual movie. So you get a midpoint high, midpoint low, like you would with a proper movie. Then you get the emotional high point in the quarter mark. So let's say 45 minutes in, you get the emotional high point, and then you get the conclusion, the climax, and the conclusion of the movie at the 1 hour mark. Boom, ends. Now the second part of the movie, which is its own essential movie, and then it ends either on a high or a low. So and then the second part of the movie hits, and then you hit the halfway mark and stuff like that. The
I
beats, the
remember.
mathematics.
I actually remember that specifically when we were breaking down Lord of the Rings. It was not on our channel, but it was on Tebello's channel.
Yes.
And
I had already figured out the routine there, and I remember I was telling you guys about it basically.
yes, so I
Yeah.
remember that. Yeah.
And that's something you can only, because like again, we talk about what's it, the 1,000 Masks or whatever it's called, the John Campbell, whatever his name is, Truby, but whatever. But basically that thing, we talk about it all the time. I talk about the save the cat theory all the time.
Yeah.
But what does it mean if you're not experiencing it? You know what I mean? If you're not doing the homework.
It's just theory if you're not actually applying it.
Yes. You must do the work. You must do the work.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. So I just wanted to know, man, what's your writing process like? Like when you start, let's say, Jin's War. How did that come about? What inspired you, and what kept? How did you finish it? Did you get stuck? What happened? Like, what was your process in that regard?
Okay, there's a. I wish I had the post. I'm so proud of it because it was basically my writing thing, but generally, I have multiple ways of doing it. The one way is basically what you do is you kind of challenge yourself. Like let's say you read the back of I'm old, so a DVD or a Blu-ray. You read the back of it, and there'll be like a short paragraph describing the entire movie, right? Yes. And then you'll be like, that's a pretty cool concept. And what you'll do is you form your own concept based on that, and you can kind of challenge yourself. The other way I do it is I call it the like explosive method, where basically what happens is in my brain I get like a vision of something dramatic. Everyone's screaming, ah! Guns are going off, explosions, people are crying, everyone is screaming, right? And this whole like Kamehameha explosions going off, and then my brain goes, "This is amazing," and then I drag it back in time, and I'm like, Steve woke up to a headache, and now I've got to somehow go from that big explosion to Steve woke up with a headache, and then I've got to try and drag my way through. That's one of my main processes actually. And then what's so nice, I never actually reach the other end because the story, normally the characters will take over and they'll just go on their own adventures.
That's why I'm asking. That's why I'm asking. Yes.
Yeah. And then sometimes what will happen as inspiration is a lot of times, especially if you read lots of books, especially whether it's a good book or a bad book, most of the time it happens. It happens more in bad books, but happens also in great books. Where inside of a book, especially like sci-fi, there will be the coolest concept you've ever heard in your life. And the author, because that wasn't the point of the book, will start doing something else. And let's say, for example, Star Wars, right? What's a good example? Being able to control, the prequels, right? You only see it in the prequels, but logically, it's something that should happen all the time. So when two Jedi are fighting, right? In the prequels, pay attention every now and then, especially against Anakin and Anakin and Obi-Wan. Every now and then they'd stop and they'd like just point their palms at each other, right?
Yeah.
And that would reflect that whenever they tried to use the Force outside of the lightsaber, the other person would catch on immediately. So there's like this psychic intuitiveness to their powers. Right. Where so it'd be like, lightsaber, and like crap, he caught me. I was trying to use the Force, and he caught me. So it cut itself off. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So like that'll be a cool concept. And then you'll never see it again in any of them. In any of the Star Wars movies, you never see the palm to palm thing again. Right. So in your brain, you'll be like, "But that's such a cool idea." And then what you do is you break that down, right, into why it's such a cool idea. And then when you do that, a lot of times what will happen is a book will write itself. A book will form. So that could be a cool thing you can do. And sometimes, and what's nice about that is what happens is the world building comes first. Same thing with Tolkien. Tolkien, the world building came before the book. A lot of the times your book comes first and then the world building comes afterwards or on the way.
So your world building comes first?
Not all the time, but yes. Especially now with my new method that I'm trying to grow. It's a hard method though, but to me it's effective. It suits my writing style. I call it the evolution method.
Mm-hmm.
So what you do is you write, right? Because I'm more of a writer than a thinker. So I'll write first. Then when I'm editing, what I'll do is I'll take notes of everything I've done, and then I'll world build and then rewrite off that. So you still get the original point, and then you layer on top of it, and you layer on top of it, and you layer on top of it. If you give me a second, I'll actually show you an example I created that kind of defines my system. Give me 1 second. I've chucked all my papers. Okay. Almost there.
No problem.
But basically, the system kind of shows the power of editing and why it's so incredibly valuable to go over your book and also to be willing to kill your darlings, to be willing to let go of an idea that you have, even if you think it's great. But at the same time, still keep the kernels of wisdom inside your head. Yeah, of course. Now that I need it, it's gone. But other times, it's right bumping my elbows. You know what I mean? It's in your face, bumping your elbows all over the place. God! And I know when I'm stopped looking, it's gonna bump my elbows again.
No, it's cool. When you find it, go back there.
I'm gonna have to try and experiment. You have to try and freestyle it, and it's not as fun when you freestyle it. Give me 2 more seconds. 2 more seconds.
I was just saying we can just continue, but if you find it, then we'll go back there.
All right, cool. Continue so long. And now.
So with me, what happens is it's a lot. It's a lot of what ifs, right? Mm-hmm. Not all the time. Sometimes I could just have an idea of, like, I'll explain. I think I told you about golden dust before. Like for me, just coming up with an idea that if time had amnesia, and if time was a person and had amnesia, what could that mean to the entire world and to history, life, death? Would that be a thing? Would people come back from the dead if time has amnesia? Because you don't remember the date of birth anymore, the date of death. You know, you don't remember. You don't remember the past and the present. So everything is all jumbled up. You know what I mean? Like,
so like it resets.
Yeah, it's a reset, but at the same time, it's like everything everywhere all at once. Like,
okay.
If that makes sense. So
like
you'd have like a Zulu warrior with like an astronaut, because time doesn't remember when Zulu warriors were doing their thing. Like what era was that? Time doesn't remember. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it like pushes you through time, or like it like shoves a Zulu warrior next to each other.
So it's like it's like right now while we're talking over the phone, I mean over Skype like this, your roommate would be like a Zulu man with a spear who pays rent but has to go out and hunt, like, if that makes sense. Or like a
yeah. So like he like, was he always there or just showed up one day but he was already always there?
So nobody remembers. Do you remember Spider-Man? You remember Spider-Man? Is it Spider-Man?
Far From Home, yes.
Far From Home, where the villains didn't remember when they died. They just remember. They just know that they appeared.
Okay.
It's only when they were talking about each other's demise when they started realizing, oh, flip. So wait, so I died?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So it's like that thing. It's like they don't remember when they died because time doesn't remember that they died.
Okay.
So it's like they've always been there in their minds. Right, like it's like when you meet a stranger I like saying this, even though it will take us back to the rabbit hole thing, where it's like when I meet a stranger, to me, they start existing the day I meet them. But it's not that it's not like they didn't exist at all. It's just that when I meet them, that's when they start existing in my life. But before then, I didn't even know they existed.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, so for me, anyway, going back to what I was saying, I do have another one called Laser Graves, where, well, right now I call it Laser Graves, but the like how I got this idea was when I was a kid, I saw a poster of Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Yeah.
It was just Eustace and Courage there on the poster. And in
Dude,
my
this
mind,
man.
when
Yeah.
I saw that poster in my head, I thought this thing was a serious cartoon. I thought it was like a very dark, because when I read the article, it said like this is a very dark cartoon.
It is, yeah.
So in my head, I was thinking this is like a if Scooby Doo was not a coward, right?
Yeah.
And this old man is like a hunter, like a like let's say if an old man and a dog went to go fetch the kids that were abducted by the Blair Witch Project type of situation.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So now I created a whole story about that. Like, no, instead of like making a joke out of this whole thing, what if Courage was serious? And what if that guy was serious? So after that, then I realized no, but these two are actually guarding an alien, right?
Yes.
That crash landed on Earth, but doesn't look human. So now it's like, what if you take Superman, the idea of Superman, right?
Yes.
But instead of making Superman to look human, what if he actually looks like shit? Right?
Yeah.
But instead of actually him being the hero, what he does is he actually uses people. Like he gives people his powers so that those people can actually, become the face and actually like save the world.
Like
or
all for one.
I don't know My Hero Academia, to be honest.
Sorry.
Yeah, but what I'm basically saying is this alien basically gives these human beings superpowers, and when they die, he just finds another host, gives that host super. So it's basically like a puppet master of sorts. But someone catches on that there has to be a bigger force at play. So it's like a Lex Luthor now, right?
Okay.
Who wants to now really identify who's the source of this person giving people powers. But then also there are ramifications to this thing. So like he crash landed in Limpopo, right?
Okay.
And like Limpopo and witchcraft, like there's this whole witchcraft thing happening there.
Yes.
So where he is, it's like a no-go area. So if you go there, if like a lot of kids have gone there, but they disappeared, right?
Yes.
In inverted commas, but they didn't really disappear. They are stuck in the spaceship, but the spaceship is like invisible. It's not really invisible. It's like a camouflage of sorts.
Okay.
So when you go to that place, you think there's nothing there, but it's actually a spaceship that's camouflaged. But then, so what happens is once you see that alien, you're not allowed to go out of the spaceship because you could put the alien in jeopardy. So what happens is the alien now has to like take you in, raise you, and all of that, and then now train you and teach you the way of the world, and that you can be like a potential superhero, or you can man the ship. You can be like a part of the crew, stuff like that. So,
all right.
So that's basically Laser Grave. It started with a poster of Courage the Cowardly Dog. Eventually, now started becoming this whole thing, bruh. Like there's like so many characters that I had in my brain, like Powerpuff Girls. Like I subverted those things. It is ridiculous, dog. But
all right, so you went the full Witcher angle. Okay, nice.
Oh, okay. I don't know The Witcher as well. I have no idea what you're talking about. but ultimately, it's just about what if, what if Superman came to Earth, but he didn't look human, and was too ashamed to reveal himself to people, not as Clark Kent versus Superman. No. He just didn't want people to see how he actually looks like. So instead, he's using other people that look like
Yeah, more of a sinister Zordon.
a
He hands out
sinister,
powers.
yeah, a sinister Zordon who means good, but he could kill
Yeah.
you if you want to expose him. That's how far he's willing to go. Good
Yes.
guy, but don't jeopardize the mission, otherwise you're gonna die.
I know.
So obviously, so your Rita Repulsas and all of that, your villains, they're trying to locate him, and those who have tried to locate him, or those who know how to locate him, they have to face off those Powerpuff Girls type of characters that I spoke about earlier, and the Eustace and Courage, the Cowardly Dog type. So those people are like his bodyguards, basically, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. I like it, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Oh man, I could see that working, but now I just got to fill it up with actual characters that are gonna go through something. Just gotta.
Oh yeah. Look, I do have characters. I have like I told you before. My stories are character based. Did you hear what I told you now? How I
Yeah.
explained the story? It started with someone. It
Yeah.
starts with someone, and that person is linked to someone else. Like basically, it's just like characters. This guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this and this and this and this. So that's
Yeah.
how I write my stories. My stories usually start with one character or two characters or three characters. Then this guy has an issue or issues, and yeah, a lot of other characters all of a sudden are in that universe, and you're like, oh, okay, this makes sense. Yeah, so that's
Okay, now when
basically
you define an issue, do you mean like a conflict? Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean by an issue?
okay. Well, an issue. Yes, it could be a conflict, but remember, conflict doesn't necessarily have to be a conflict between the main character and someone else. It could be an inner conflict,
True.
right?
Absolutely.
It could be an inner conflict. Like with this alien, for instance, the inner conflict is his appearance.
Okay,
Like
but the alien won't be the main character, right? He's just like a, or you can
he's
tell
one of
me.
he's one of the main characters.
You would make him a POV.
No. He's not a POV, but he's like Professor X, if that makes sense.
No, I understand that part. So he's
Yeah.
not a POV. That's what I was checking. Okay.
No. POV is like this. So basically, it's like heroes for hire. Like the Powerpuff Girls kind of characters I was telling about are like heroes for hire.
Mm.
They're the ones that get involved in this whole thing. And okay, so we have to now protect this alien, and then this is hush hush, like a covert op type of thing.
Yes.
They're actually called blue bubbled punks. The reason, so I came up with the name blue bubbled punks. I had no idea how I was gonna use that name for years, bro. Until I came up with this idea, like I think last month or something. Like when you have like different ideas that you've been talking.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason they're called blue bubble punks is a bubble means it's something you have to like. Okay, think of a force field.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Blue meaning something unpleasant that you have to protect. So they basically are discreet in what they do. It's something that it has to be hush hush, and only a few people know about it. So it's in its own bubble. It's blue. It's unpleasant, and it's these punks like delinquents that are like these girls are not nice at all. It's not Sugar Spice and everything nice. No. These are delinquents, bro. These are 3 delinquents.
Like the Rowdy Rough Boys, yes.
Yeah, but girl versions.
Yes.
Right. And they are being basically the Guardian is like a Professor Utonium, but he's their uncle in this scenario. Yeah. So the uncle is the one that actually runs the business. He's an inventor. And the reason he became an inventor is because someone stole the aliens' device that actually gives human beings powers. So that device eventually landed to this guy when he was a kid. This guy pressed the wrong buttons and it affected the kids. Right. So kind of like Chemical X, but the device, Chemical X. So the alien saw this, but then he let it be for a while until he was in the rat where he's like, I need those kids because I know that they have powers. So I need them. I need to hire them because I know what they can do. I've been monitoring them for years. So that's how he hires them, because he knows that he's been hiring them for years. That device has a tracker in it. So it's a whole story. It's a whole story, but yeah, that's how I write stories, man. That's how I connect the dots.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you finished any?
I finished. No, my stuff is not finished. I'll tell you why it's not finished.
Let's hear it.
Um, so I think I told you this before. I have about maybe 30 something stories.
Mm-hmm.
And like almost every writer can tell you that the characters that they come up with, it's like they listen to the character. Like what the character tells them to do, that's what they write down, right?
Okay.
So with me, I have maybe like 7 universes of stories. It's not just one story. So I have like think of me creating the DC universe, then creating the Marvel universe, then creating like the Naruto universe, then creating like Dennis the Menace universe. So the
Okay.
reason they're not finished is that as I'm growing with this character. So I have seasons of content of each universe, if that makes sense. So it's an ongoing
How many words?
process. Pardon?
Is it a book? Book? Comic?
It's gonna be comic books. It's gonna be audio books. So okay, let me explain how this is gonna go. And I hope somebody is listening to what we're saying, and maybe they might going back to passing it forward. So the idea is to have a comic book. This comic book is also going to be done as an audio book. And then this comic book is going to be translated into 11 official languages. Then the audio book is also going to be translated into 11 official languages. Then there's going to be a web comic, a motion comic. That's also going to be translated to 11 official languages. Then obviously there's going to be merch and whatever. So the reason I'm doing this is so that, one, you don't just connect to people who speak one language. I mean, if you think about some of the books that like some of the most famous books that have been translated into various languages, French, Chinese,
Yes.
or whatever. But we already have that advantage as South Africa. Going back to the question that you asked me earlier, we are in South Africa. What can we do? The advantage we have is translating this to different languages. That's the major advantage that we have. And reaching out to those kids that only speak that language.
Okay.
And also what that does, it helps them understand their mother tongue a lot better. Because we're losing that slowly. So that's the aim. It's a long journey, but I'm not in a rush. So one of the things that I am doing is, how they say that people have 10-year plans?
Yeah.
You could say my plan is it should outlive me, this thing. So the stories themselves will continue without me should the ship still be able to sail without me. So these stories will always be there. It's gonna be like they're automated in a way. As long as there's an artist, there's an animator, there's voiceover artists, and there's a budget, the stories will continue even without me.
All right.
That's basically what it is. So I'm just laying blueprints of universes.
Yes.
And characters and storylines and evergreen content, so that by the time I'm gone, all you just have to do is just carry on with the blueprint and you should be fine.
But you're not dying, right? You don't have some illness.
No, I'm not dying. I don't have any illness. I'm just saying, anything is possible. So, so going back to this founders podcast thing, Ted Turner, you know Ted Turner, right?
No.
So Ted Turner is like a businessman. He created CNN. What else did he do? I think there's T. He married Jane Fonda, man. Like he did what T something. He bought like a sports team. He's like one of those business moguls, man. Like that you should really look up to if you really wanna become like a great man, like type of thing. Like he was remarkable. Like he was the first one to create like a 24-hour news channel. And that channel, like CNN, was the only 24-hour news channel for 13 years, bro, before other channels caught on. That's the kind of man he is.
That's
But
crazy.
anyway,
Yeah.
Turner, his dad told him that make sure that whatever you're gonna pursue in life, it should be something that seems like it's impossible for you to achieve in a lifetime. Like it should, because what happened with his dad was his dad had a vision,
Mm-hmm.
had a dream, and achieved that dream quickly. So it's like, what next? And he didn't have another thing after that.
Uh,
So so with me, it's kind of something similar where all these ideas that I have, bro, even the content that I have on this channel, I have content that's gonna be flighted next year, December. There's content that's gonna be flighted in 2026 already.
wait, say it again. That's gonna be what?
There's content that's gonna be released in 2026 already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. That's exciting. It's very exciting, man.
Yeah, man.
I'm assuming you don't want to give away too much.
Yeah, look, no, not. I mean, it's to cut the long story short. It's like, I mean, this video alone could come out next year, maybe, because what we're talking about now is not dated. It's not something that it's dated. Writing will always be writing.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yes.
Does it make sense? Yeah. The only things that are dated are the new Metro Monthly things that we do. But if you look at the stuff that we've been doing,
Mm-hmm.
it's evergreen content. The Karate Kid will always be the Karate Kid. like, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah. But anyway, going back to you, man. Did you find what you were looking for?
Nah, I gave up. But it's fine now. No, what you were doing was great.
Yeah. No, it's a serious blueprint, man. But yeah, man, I think world building is amazing. I usually think about people like J.K. Rowling, Cowboy Bebop, for instance. Like, I know Cowboy Bebop, like they live in Mars. The currency they use is Wulongs.
Yes.
Yes. They can. There's like that whole border patrol thing, even though they're in space. Like they need like boarding passes and stuff like that. You don't just travel anywhere.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes writing hard though. That's the one thing that people don't talk about when it comes to world building is that when you can't freestyle it, it's actually really hard. You have to fit everything you're trying to put into a thing. That's why I think a lot of these movie adaptations are kind of struggling because they start trying to freestyle their own ideas, and then when you look at it, you're like, okay, but that doesn't fit in the rules of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if you can manage to do something and then keep to the rules, you're already 20 steps ahead. And but as a writer, it is really hard.
I agree with you. I agree with you. That's why I think freestyle. The problem with freestyling is there's going to be a lot of loopholes in your storytelling, and that's something that people started questioning Akira on with Dragon Ball. They were like, wait a minute, what do you mean? Wait, what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. What happened to launch? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was thinking about her actually when I was speaking, because it's like I forgot. Really? You just forgot a whole character.
A whole character that was like relevant.
Yeah, wasn't she like Tien's girlfriend or something?
It was. I think she tried to scam Krillin. She was Krillin's OG girlfriend, I believe. Either that or it was Roshi. I can't remember. It was one of the two. It was Krillin or Roshi.
No, man. I think it was Tien, man.
I'm 90% sure it wasn't Tien.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
Yeah. Is there a specific world or universe that fascinates you?
Again, you really need to start reading Brandon Sanderson because his universal stuff is very clever. For example, I just read a book called The Sunlit Man, where in this universe, right, get this. So it's a small planet, right? but on the planet is a sun that is right next to the planet. So what ends up happening is this sun basically nukes. Kind of like imagine what's it? Chronicles of Riddick, but on steroids. So
Yeah.
so now what happens is the people that live there have to live on like spaceships and they have to keep moving at a certain speed ahead of the planet's rotation. And they have to keep moving. And it turns out in order to get enough electricity to keep moving, what they have to do is they have to sacrifice people's, because these people all have like gems hearts. They got gems inside their hearts. So if they sacrifice their lives and they get burnt by the sun, because the sun's got so much raw energy in it, it ends up activating the gemstone inside their hearts that produces massive amounts of electricity that keeps the cities stable. And then yeah, and then so what happens is when you're on the other side of the planet, it's cold, and it rains. The rain comes, and plants grow really quickly, and there are actually animals and everything, and people can even hunt them, but you got to figure it out really quickly. So a forest will form in like an hour, an entire forest will form in like an hour. Then the sun will come and then burn it all down, and then it'll regrow later on. It's fast, and then then what happens is like this guy comes and he like it's almost a classic Western where a stranger comes in and then helps the community kind of storyline. Fantastic. And then another storyline of his is this is all Brandon Sanderson in the Mistborn series, masterpiece of a series. Definitely one of the books you'd read first if you ever decide to read them. It's a universe where the world is also a bit too hot, but not like that craziness. But basically, there's this magic system where if you ingest a small amount of metal, right, and you burn it inside your stomach, you can actually develop powers that give you specific powers. So if let's say you burn a metal called pewter, it gives you super strength. If you burn tin, it gives you super senses. And then there's like other metals where like it gives you the ability to like push against other metals or pull towards other metals, and that can let you fly depending on how you control it. Right. And yeah, each book is like 1,000 pages. 3-book series. It ended up being 7 books in the end, but the first series, which I recommend, the one I've read, 1,000 page per book, massive books, buddy. I'm talking bigger than Lord of the Rings, than the individual Lord of the Rings novels.
So, from what you explained, it sounds like the world building came first, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, he talked about how, again, the biggest series, bigger than even Mistborn, is something called the Stormlight Saga. I just watched a video like just the other day of him saying, "Oh yeah, when he was in college, he was chilling with a friend, and his friend was like, let's go on holiday to a place called like these like mountain ranges in like I think it's Arizona or whatever." And he was looking at this like what's it, the Grand Canyon type stuff. You know those like you've seen movies like Tremors and how even Due Date, where you kind of see like the way America's got like these lands. It's like rocks. It's like it's like a bowl of rock and like these tiny like mountain things. And he was talking about how like these areas, or like the movie 27 Hours, 127 Hours, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where there are like these weird cracks in the world. And then the friend was telling, no, historically storms are the ones that created this, right? And he was talking about how like you have to be careful because with the shape of the land, if even a small rain comes, what ends up happening is thanks to gravity and the shape of the area, all the water pushes to one location. So before you know it, you could drown to death. Just a flash flood. And you're in the middle of the desert. It rains once, flash flood, you're dead. And he was like, that's such a cool idea. And then he ended up creating a series called the Stormlight Archives. And then what happens is very similar to the Sunlit Man, but instead of the sun, it's a storm. A massive storm comes. And if you live close to the storm, because I think it's like almost like a flat kind of earth kind of situation, where the closest storm, the storm will lift boulders and rip trees off their roots. But then when you reach near the end of the storm, the energy of the storms calm down to the point where it's green grass, drizzle. It's fantastic. It's like almost like Earth. Whereas on the one end, it's like you only get creatures like crab-like things with like shells to keep them alive, and then on the other end you get like more normal stuff. And they do it like this. You know how Lord of the Rings is 3 books, right?
Mm-hmm.
The 4th book, Rhythm of War, is bigger than all 3 Lord of the Rings books combined. If you put them together, there's more pages than all 3 Lord of the Rings books. And now the final book in the series is about to be bigger than that even. And that's how massive these books are.
How did you discover this guy?
Huh?
How did you discover this guy?
First of all, if you are a fantasy fan, chances are someone will recommend him to you. But I think I almost discovered him by accident. YouTube videos, someone was like, "Oh, you gotta read this," and I was like, "All right, cool, let's give it a shot." And yeah, addicted ever since.
What's his name?
Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, the guy we were talking about offline.
Yes, that guy.
But which one is he? Is it the guy with the glasses?
The chubby one, yeah.
Yeah, that guy's a genius, Mus.
Yeah, and he writes faster than you can read. Like, he puts out 2 books a year.
Because have you noticed, like, in his videos there, he has, like, a lot of notes, dog. Like...
Oh, that thing he's signing? That's how... You know that thing he's like, you just see his hand squiggling?
Yeah.
Those are books that he's going to sell. So the front cover, so the front 2 pages of the book, opens it, signs it, closes it, and then those will be hardcovers that he sells. And if you watch all of his things, you'll see him doing that all the time.
Yeah, so I thought he was just taking notes as he's speaking.
No, it's signed copies of his book.
So he's working while talking with the other guy?
Yes, that's basically why he has a podcast, because he has to every day he has to spend an hour like signing and signing and signing.
The other guy's name is the other guy shares the same name as him. He's also...
Well, he's a famous author as well, but obviously not as famous as Brandon Sanderson.
He's Brandon, though. His name is also Brandon.
Yes. They were friends from like high school days or whatever. Because they were both trying to push in the writing game. I think that's how they met. And Brandon Sanderson talking about how
Arizona or something. What's that? Wait, where are they from again? Is it Arizona?
I'm not sure. I think it's like Michigan or one of those other states, something like that. It's not Arizona. I know it's not Arizona, but it's one of those other ones, like Nevada type stuff. But yeah.
I think it's Cleveland. I think they're from Cleveland. Or one of them is from Cleveland.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, devout Mormon, which is so interesting if you like. And yeah, his style of writing is very cool, but he's like the ultimate world builder. Where like he really pushes his ideas to the ultimate. Like it's not just enough to have a cool idea where weird things happen. No, you gotta break it down to make sense of it.
What inspired him though?
Playing Dungeons and Dragons. He just was always a fantasy aiming kid. He just liked fantasy early on, apparently that's what he said. And yeah, he was like, you know what, I can write. Let me do this. And he actually has a very clever thing. He said your first 10 books are going to be bad. So he said he just knocked out his first 10 books fast.
Quickly.
Yeah, and then his 10th book was the one that blew up. That got picked up by agents.
It goes back to what we were saying earlier. Like your first stuff it's gonna be bad, bro. Like whether you like it or not. Like but it's you practicing, right?
Yeah.
It's just practicing. But I think what I've noticed. So Tarantino was talking about this guy, man. I think his name was Lloyd or something. Mm-hmm. That I think it was like his mom's friend or something. So this guy was sort of a friend, but not really a friend. So they used to watch movies together. And this guy wrote a screenplay. Like this is the first screenplay that Tarantino ever read. Ever.
Yeah.
And this screenplay is about an African-American, I think it's an African-American hero, a Western about an African-American hero or something like that. He says that story is what ultimately, I think, inspired him to do Django Unchained.
Because it was so good or because it was so bad?
No, it was great.
Oh.
But it never got made.
Yeah.
So, what I was my point to even say all of that is those 9 books that he must have written might be bad, but I'm sure there are some ideas in those books that he probably reused somewhere.
Of
It's
course.
like these manga writers where they do their one shot.
Yeah.
And when they actually get serialized, they take some ideas from that one shot, but they just change those ideas a bit.
Oh, absolutely. That's 100% how it works. Yes.
Yeah.
And it has to be how it works, because I'm not saying you have limited ideas, but at the same time, I think when you're a young writer, there's a level. I've been thinking about this a lot, where there's like a level of brilliance and bravery that you have. I think even before that you just don't have when you're more experienced.
Yeah, that's why George Orwell. No, not George Orwell. What's this guy's name? Citizen Kane. What's his name again?
Orson Welles.
Orson Welles. When they keep asking him, man, like, what were you thinking when you were doing this thing? What? How did you? He's like, guys, I didn't know what I didn't know. So the reason Citizen Kane became what it was is because I genuinely didn't know that I wasn't allowed to do certain things.
Yeah, like, the power of ignorance. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the power of ignorance, dog. And also, his friend, I think, taught him, the cinematographer, I believe. He taught him certain things about movie making, like within a few days, bro. And he was like, "Look, if you can learn what I learned in a few days, you can make a movie." I'm like, "What did they teach you, dog?"
It's all craziness, right? It's fantastic craziness.
Yeah, man. It goes back to this guy. Sorry, man. I'm gonna talk about the Founders Podcast a lot because I am a huge fan of the guy. But ultimately, what he was saying was, the power of reading biographies is it allows you to. What those biographies do is that they allow you to learn things quicker, because the mistakes that the people that you follow have made teach you what you should avoid. So if you read about George Lucas and the mistakes that he made when he was doing the first Star Wars, if you're a filmmaker, that means that you're going to avoid those mistakes that he did because you already know that this is a bad move. But if you don't read the book, you wouldn't know.
That's true. Very true.
So you learn quicker.
Yeah, of course. I mean, honestly, having a mentor would be the ultimate gift, right? Having a mentor would be the ultimate gift, but that's not something everyone can have.
Yeah. He also said, like, James Cameron, right? So what James Cameron did was, I think he was working at some university. I don't remember what he was doing, whether he was a janitor or something. I don't remember. But what he would do at night is he would copy the papers, the assignments of the students at that university. He would photocopy all their theses and stuff like that and read them, bruh, and read all that stuff. It would be pages upon pages upon pages about film. And it's like what he basically did is he took himself to school, or rather he taught himself by reading what the students of that school did. The only thing that he paid for was the photocopy, like photocopying that stuff. That's the only thing he paid for. He didn't pay for tuition. He just paid for photocopying that information.
If you're hungry for education, bro, that's what you do. I mean, you have to be hungry. That's the one thing that goes without saying. And he was clearly starving. That is brilliant, man. That's such a cool story. I mean, but access is tough, but you have to try and force access. That's why I was like, I got to practice through experience. That was my way in, because I figured, the old Rock Lee method, just keep trying.
Yeah.
If you can't do it one way, then, do it more times.
Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to say that sometimes, man, it is really tough to continue with a story. Like sometimes you can have like a block for like a year. I have some projects that I haven't been able to finish because I wrote myself in a corner. And then you create other stories, you finish those, but you're still stuck on that specific story. And then one day, you just have a eureka moment and the story just starts flowing again. And I think those are the things that people don't really know.
And sometimes you're not ready to finish it.
Yes. But also another director said something profound. He said, because they asked him, man, what is your secret? What makes you such a great director? He said, read. Keep reading. The more you know, like it's like the more you know about stuff, the more informed you become about stuff. Like going back to that author you were talking about, I think the reason he's so great at world building is because he read a lot. Probably he knows a lot about geography, he knows a lot about like.
Oh yeah, no. If you watch the podcast, you can hear them talking about famous authors historically and all that stuff. They know their stuff. It's not just, oh, I like Batman comics and therefore I write great books. You know what I mean? They can talk about Frankenstein. They can talk about all these people.
Bro, they can talk like the link that I sent you. They were talking about Voldemort as Voldemort on one hand, and the other hand they were talking about DuckTales. I'm like, these guys are awesome. Like,
yeah, it's so awesome, dude. They are very awesome. Like, they are so very awesome. I love them so much, dude. But that's what it's all about. It's all about reaching to a certain level where now it's all about the theory. And you're talking at such a high level, man. It's like, what is that thing? You climb the mountain, you become a lion, only to realize that you're in a field of lions. You know what I mean? Getting to the mountain is not enough, and these guys prove it, man. Yeah. All the time.
Yeah, but man, when you're always, okay, let me put it like this. When you're always, like, I know with us, for instance, like before we even started this podcast, I used to watch like your statuses all the time where you share like pages and pages and pages and pages of your stories. Like, okay, this is what I think. You would make mind maps. You would do like, you would show your actual world maps that you have developed and the countries and the whatever, like the continents and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you're just sharing it on your WhatsApp. Like, whether people see it or not, you don't really care that much. Yes, sure, here and there you might care that someone actually, you'd appreciate it if someone was to comment, but you're still continuing whether they comment or not, because ultimately this thing drives you. You know what I mean? This thing pushes you. You cannot explain it to anybody, and not everybody would understand unless they're creative themselves. The fact that this guy is able to write over 1,000 pages is not because he was looking for validation. It's because he had a passion, and he went with it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, because the reality is that stealing your ideas is actually overrated. Like, we overthink. The reality is we overthink that. You know what I mean? Because someone can try steal your idea, but they can't actually.
They won't be able to do it exactly the way you're gonna do it. It's near impossible.
Because their levels of understanding aren't enough. So even if they could manage to somehow copy you, they won't be able to continue. How do you go to the next step?
Yeah, how do you do the sequel?
Yeah, they can't.
There's another podcast that I'm listening to, right? It's basically about the movies that could have been made but were not made. So they're talking about how Steve Jobs had an issue with the CEO that was at Disney before Bob Iger came in, because you know that Bob Iger and Jobs had like a good relationship. That's why eventually like Iger bought Pixar, right? But before, this was after Toy Story 2 came out, and they were working on Toy Story 3. So the plan was that Disney was going to continue to do Toy Story movies without Pixar's consent. So what they ultimately do with these guys, I'll send you a link to that podcast. So what they ultimately do, these guys at the podcast, is they do extensive research and get the scripts of the movies that were going to be made in that regard. So they have like a Toy Story script that was supposed to be made, Toy Story 3 script that was going to be made. And to what they also do is they find actors who are really good at impressions to act out some of the scenes in those scripts.
Oh wow, that's
you have someone who sounds you have someone who sounds like Tom Hanks. You have someone who sounds like Woody Allen. Not who's this guy again?
Woody Allen
Why am
is
I?
right.
No, it's not Woody Allen, man. Not Woody Allen. Man, and I like this guy. Who voices Buzz again? Tim
Yeah,
Allen.
Tom Hanks and Woody Allen.
Tim Allen, not Woody Allen.
Oh, sorry, Tim Allen. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tom Hanks and Woody and Tim Allen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tim the Tool Man. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So there's a lot of podcasts. Like there's a lot of podcasts about writing, filmmaking, and I think that is the advantage that we have in this digital era. That is that we have a lot of information that usually you would have had to like go to the library to get, and it would take you longer.
Yes.
But you have these guys, like the guys that we were talking about now, who are able to just give us this information for free. I mean, this is valuable information.
Oh yeah. Like
So
you
they're
said,
passing
man,
it forward as well.
we basically, like, I think John can talk about this. We live in the new Gutenberg era. This is YouTube and podcasting is the new printing press. And what's so nice is, remember, not everyone can read, but everyone can listen.
Yes.
So that is powerful, man.
And not everybody can understand your language. So
yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. But I think, man, we chopped it up for a minute. Is there anything else maybe that you want to say before we close it off? Or do you want to continue? I don't know.
No, it's all good. I'm enjoying myself, but otherwise, no, this was good. We should do this more often. I had fun.
Yeah.
No, I've got nothing.
No, same here, man.
Yeah?
I think before we close, maybe let's dive a bit into character dynamics. I think one thing I've realized over the years is characters that do not age well, characters that age like milk, are these mustache twirling villains that are evil for evil's sake. You know, they feel one-dimensional.
Like Lord Freezer.
Characters that actually but I don't think Frieza is a mustache twirling villain. Is it like a
Yes, the man happily commits genocide. I wouldn't even not even genocide, omnicide. I mean,
yeah, but okay, what's the difference?
He does. Okay, I didn't hear you. I just heard it cut off. What are you gonna say? What are you saying?
What's the difference?
Between what?
What's the difference?
Between what?
Between omnicide and genocide.
It just basically means you kill everyone. Like, for example, genocide is when you kill, a group of people. You know what I mean? Like, you kill one ethnic group or you kill over 200,000 people. I think the number is 200,000. No, it might be 20,000. I'm not sure what the UN definition of a genocide is. I think it's 20,000 and up. I could be wrong there. I think it might be 100,000 and up. But it's a big-ass number and up, and also a specific group of people for the purpose of elimination. But omnicide basically means you kill everyone. So, for example, Eren Yeager, he almost, from Attack on Titan, he was basically an omnicider. Because you almost destroyed the planet. He almost destroyed everything. Technically, Vegeta is too, and Frieza, because they destroyed entire planets, killing everyone inside. But otherwise, omnicide is still genocide. It's just on a complete scale.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't know that word existed until now.
Oh, it's fine. It's a new word for me too. It's a new word for me too. It's something I discovered on TikTok. I think, when did I even discover it? But it was pretty cool. I like the word. I really like the word. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go with this. That's something that's nice about writing.
I wouldn't consider Frieza to be...
No, you're saying you wouldn't consider?
I wouldn't consider Frieza to be an example of what I'm talking about.
All right.
Maybe he does fall under that category, but I feel like he's the better part of that that villain. I'm talking about the worst part of that type of villain. I'm
All
talking
right.
about like characters who love for no reason, characters who tell you the evil plan, characters who kidnap someone you love for the sake of it, just so that they can get your attention. Like I feel like their motivations don't really seem realistic.
Okay.
Um,
You have an
but
example?
characters, but characters who okay,
Yes.
give an example. Of what of these type of bad muscle toiling characters.
Yeah.
I mean, Gargamel from the Smurfs, man. Like, what's his deal?
Yeah, I can
You know
see what you're saying.
what
You're
I
trying to
mean?
say like the coyote, basically from Roadrunner.
I mean, the coyote wants to eat. That makes sense. That for me makes sense. He's not the example for that. Like, coyote is definitely not the example.
Okay, but I think I know what you're talking about, though.
Team Rocket. Team Rocket.
Yeah.
Like, you still Pikachu and then what?
Well, fair enough. I get what you're trying to say. I mean, technically, one could argue Sauron is very straightforward. There's no nuance there. But obviously, that's a good example. Um, I think, no,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think there has been an evolution in terms of that. But at the same time, I think there are tools that still have their uses. Like a continuous force is a good metaphor to use, but I agree. Yes, we've definitely changed. A good example being shit. I had it now. Um, Apparently, can I say the Joker used to be a lot more crazy. If you look at recent
Yes.
stuff on old school comics, the Joker used to just do stuff for the sake of doing
Yep.
stuff. But now, thanks to, in the last, let's say, 50
Yes.
years, he's now an evil mastermind. Like he keeps having all these grand plans that he wasn't that smart in the past.
Yes.
Now he
No,
actually
he
has.
wasn't. He was just
It
a
was just
mustache twirling villain. Yeah.
yeah. He was just doing stuff to do stuff. I mean, one could argue he's still doing that, but now there's more.
Yeah.
There's more to it than that. So I agree. There's some
100%.
there's some stuff that have been rewritten today that now make that are kind of better because they've been given more thought, whereas before they really weren't.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, let's think of some. But I agree with what I think I understand what you're trying to say with character dynamics. I think if you add even the smallest level of dynamic to a character, it definitely expands them. Because a good example that I was thinking of was actually Batman. Recently, I recently discovered that Batman, like, okay, not recently, that's last year, but I discovered that Batman really doesn't like the Green Lantern. Not just the Green Lanterns as a whole, but like one Green Lantern particularly.
Oh, freelancers. Yes, I
Yeah,
discovered that recently as well. I didn't know this.
yeah, but like I like the idea of Batman just not liking someone. I think
Yeah.
that's good writing because I think that because it deepens your character fantastically because um there are people out there who aren't bad people that you just don't like. Do you know what I mean? They're not
Yep. Yeah,
monsters. They
yeah,
don't
yeah, for
beat their
sure.
families, but they're fucking
No.
to you. They're narcissistic pieces of shit, or they're selfish, or they're so
Yeah.
and so. But they
They're
don't.
arrogant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not gonna murder someone like in a lot of old school movies. This used to happen all the time, where like it would be like a romance, and there'll be the good guy, Mr. Right, and then there'll be the girl, and then there'll be just the worst piece of
Mhm.
shit that's ever existed. Where it's like, okay, but this woman is intelligent. How was she with this guy in the first place? You know what I mean?
Right.
Where like this guy is so bad, it's
Yeah.
almost confusing.
But he's
And
not a
you,
villain.
yeah, he's just like this weird abusive boyfriend. Why is he abusive? Why? Because we need the good guy. I think we even discussed this with the Jack Black one,
Yeah.
where like
Which Jack Black one?
what's it? Not
What?
Love
The
Actually.
holiday thing.
The Holiday, yes. Where the narcissistic guy that the one chick is in love with, the British chick is in love with, like you don't really get that guy as often
Yes.
anymore.
You mean
Where like
when
yeah, where he shows up at this chick's house and is just a
you mean
complete narcissist. Are you saying words? Hello?
Kate Winslet, bro?
Winslet, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You keep breaking up. But yeah, like his character, I feel like as modern day writing is kind of like it doesn't make him as off like they used to. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't make a guy like that anymore. As often. Let me not say anymore.
Yeah.
Like what's a good example of where like the thing is you kind of still want to make that character because it justifies your main lady leaving. But at the same time, I think there's a change there that's kind of cool that I find really interesting. What
Yeah.
do
I
you
mean,
think?
how many of those movies have been made? That's
Yeah.
the question. I think people have started getting bored of seeing the same thing over and over again, which is why Quentin Tarantino says what some of the best filmmaking has been done in the 70s.
Oh
Because
yeah,
in
he
the
said that's one
80s,
of his favorite eras. Yeah.
like in the 80s, movies started getting too predictable and all of that and too safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why he probably stood out when he came out, because I guess you could say he was going back to that era.
Oh yeah, he was mixing things up definitely. But I think there's something that I thought it was really great where he's mentioned that I think is fascinating. I think we all need to think about is that a lot of times, a lot of the problems with a lot of modern writing is that we think about the characters too much. And I do actually kind of like that argument. Like yeah, like how you were talking about, like, oh no, I'm more focused on my characters, and it's like,
Mm.
okay, characters doing what? Do you know what I mean?
Right,
You
right.
gotta they like I'm not saying you have to give them something to do like homework. Do you know what I mean? But like,
Yeah.
what are your characters doing? And I thought that's a really good point. And like there's this famous writer, I think is it John Truby? I always forget the guy's name, where he was like talking about how he was also frustrated with something similar. He was saying nowadays he was talking about like how like not necessarily low level writers, but one of the earlier levels of writing, right, is when you
Mm-hmm.
start focusing on like a character's and like a character too much. But if you really want your thing to be successful, what you have to do is you have to first of all you have to master characters. You can't obviously by saying like you were saying like character work is good, but that's like having four wheels on a tire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that goes without saying. If you
Wait,
have bad characters
four wheels on a tire or four wheels on a car? What do you mean four wheels
on a car, sorry, my bad.
Okay.
You'd think I was drunk or something, but anyway, four wheels on a car, like that's supposed to be that's you're supposed to do that. Well done. You're now officially a writer. But the plot and what you have them do, that's what really gets you going. And
Yes.
like that's something I've been thinking about a lot. Like again, when talk about Brandon Sanderson, like his like one of these most famous characters is a character called Kaladin. When I say half the world is in love with this character, they are just absolutely in love with him. Um, his story, he starts as a slave, right?
Hmm.
And then in this universe, there's this war going on where like there's like these like hills with like these gaps. No, it's like the Grand Canyon, right? But
Hmm.
instead there's like these tiny little towers all over them that like so there's like cracks in the earth and you gotta put a bridge over these cracks and then walk over them to get the army from one side to the other side. And
Right.
as a slave, he has to carry this bridge. Now, obviously, the other army is like, if we just kill the bridge guys, we'll stop the army, right? So now he's in the
Oh,
situation where he's now got to try and avoid arrows that are aiming at him to kill him first every single day, and that's his life now. So like, it's not just the character, but it's what the character's being put through.
oh no, 100%. It goes back to when we were doing a review of Princess Mononoke. Remember when we were saying that Ashitaka
Mm-hmm.
is the main character, but the story doesn't revolve around him. It's like
Yes.
he just happens to be a character that is stuck in this universe of like things happening around him.
Exactly, and it's borderline Indiana Jones. Like if he wasn't there, okay, he saves Princess Mononoke, I think, at one point, but otherwise the story probably would have happened the same way.
Yeah, I heard that in the Big Bang Theory, they're like, all the like all the Indiana Jones movies, everything could have happened without him. They're like, whoa, wait, what?
Oh yeah, especially mainly the first one,
Oh no,
where the Nazis would have been killed anyway.
I think they were talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah,
yes.
They were like, oh, even if he was not there, everything would have unfolded exactly the way. I was like, oh, flip.
Number one, it's because of him that the Nazis figure out where the thingamajiggy is in the first place. So number one, if he wasn't there, they wouldn't have figured it out. And then number two, when they do figure it out and they get there, they all end up picking the wrong cup anyway, and they end up dying. So problem solved. Didn't have to be there.
Man, the power of writing. But now we have this author of Jujutsu Kaisen who's just subverting expectations left, right, and center just because he can.
I'm still on season 1, buddy. I have no idea. I'm still figuring out. But I think, because I know season 1 is basically, I mean, I will stand by me saying that's Naruto just made modern day.
JJK is Naruto and Bleach combined, dog. That's basically what that is. Like, honestly. That's Kakashi. It's like, what if Kakashi was actually as great as we expected him to be in Naruto?
Instead of the first arc, just to prove that he's cool, and then it's like, hey, step aside, Kakashi. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the Zabuza arc is pretty much Kakashi at his most effective in terms of plot, and then he's pretty much done from there. And it's like, okay, Naruto, the rest is you, buddy. He gets the goal. We could talk about Asian storytelling for ages, because Asian storytelling, again, I'll always say they are kings when it comes to a strong premise. Like, do you know what I mean?
They are. No, I agree with you. I think.
But my God, do they love their formulas?
The best ideas, bro, probably come from Asian storytelling. I don't want to lie.
Absolutely. But my God, do they love their formulas, bro?
And I think that's what limits them, I think. I do know that the formulas work and they sell, but sometimes I feel like, guys, how many times do you want us to watch the same thing over and over again?
Yeah, exactly. And it's exhausting. Like, to the point where you now know like, oh my God, like, you'll notice the beats immediately. Like, there's still 3 episodes to go, right, before the arc ends. But the good guy's winning. Uh-oh. It means this is not his true form. Give him a minute, guys.
Yeah, you know what I mean? When the hero's in a battle and you start seeing the backstory, you're like, he's gonna die. Why are we seeing the backstory?
Yeah, why are we suddenly getting it now, all at once?
Exactly. Or where a character who's stronger than the main character, but is actually a supporting character, has to be nerfed so that the main character can defeat the villain. You're like, why?
Yeah, or even then, it's even easier than that. Like, you'll just notice they start winning, and you're like, but there's still 2 episodes go. How are you winning right now? Why is there so much excitement? Why is the music so active? Oh, it's because you're about to get knocked the fuck out. You're about to die.
You get anxiety that this guy's winning.
Yeah.
Because it's 2 episodes left. You're like, no.
Yeah, you're winning too early, buddy. You're smiling too quick. That's not how anime works. So now I know what's about to happen now.
Exactly.
What's another example? Like,
But we still watch it anyway.
Yeah?
But we still watch it anyway.
Oh, yeah. Even though now, it's so funny to switch things up. I've started reading romance. That's the funniest thing. But they're more formulaic than ever. But they have such interesting premises where it's like, oh no, what they'll do is, oh no, like their reincarnation stuff is fascinating. Like, I was born morbidly obese, right? And then they'll get thin within 10 chapters, and now they're normal, and then it goes straight to the formula. You're like, oh, fuck you. Or I was born a werewolf, and then they'll cure the werewolfness, and now we're back to the manga. And it's like, no, 10 chapters in, they've already cured the problem, so the premise that they had is gone, and now we're back to the normal.
Why do you think that is, though? Why do they do that, though?
Because I think in romance it works. Like, for example, I think blonde hair is more effective in the West, but in Asia, black hair is more effective. So literally, without exception, 99.99999% of all their male heroes will have black hair.
Okay.
Because that's what works. Ladies want to see black hair, and that's what they'll get, and it'll be given to them, and they'll eat it gratefully. In the same way with like what A Court of Thorns and Roses, it's a werewolf story. Oh, the main guy is a dark werewolf, and she's a spunky young person who loses all her power or whatever. Gets kidnapped, kind of Beauty of the Beast style. Yeah, that's what works. That's what sells, and that's what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, people like what they like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem with us writers, is that we have to do it in such a way where we have to. I hate it when writers are like, screw the fans, you don't know what you want, because that's a mistake. You've got to, first of all, you got to read your target audience. That's why I read so many romance stuff, because I want to have good romance in my books. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to just have action. So I'll read all the stuff to make sure I've got these key elements followed, see the patterns, see the stuff. And you have to, like you said, man, you have to read first. You can't even write one book without reading 10, 50 books, in my opinion.
Hey, but 50 is a lot, but I do hear what you're saying.
Dog, you'd think so.
I mean, you and I have probably read, combined, we probably had read 1,000. But I do get what you're saying. I do understand what you're saying. I don't want to lie.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, it sounds like a lot.
Yeah, it does. But it turns out it's not a lot when you're trying to be a producer, it's not. You know what I mean? If you're a consumer, it's a lot. But if you're a producer, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that's valuable. And I just think when you got to take all these elements, and what you got to do is you got to follow, first of all, number one, try to follow the rules, number one. So I think it was Van Gogh who said, you have to learn the rules first, and then you can break them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So number one, you got to follow the rules. Yeah, sorry?
I'm saying he was right. I mean, I don't know who he was talking to because he was not famous at the time, but I do get what you're saying. He was right.
Yeah. So what you got to do is, and I think that's one of the mistakes a lot of us make as writers, is that like you'll see all these comic artists doing their best, or like these writing artists being their best, and you're like, cool, man, what number book is this? Oh, it's number 1. Oh, so your first book, you're gonna subvert the world's expectations. You know what I mean? That doesn't make sense. Like, for example, I have written, the whole 10 novel thing, I have written 10 novels. Jin's War was actually even though it's my last book to put out, it was actually novel number 2, my second ever novel that I rewrote. Bludgeon Ball, which was my last completed new novel, was novel number 10. And then Bludgeon Ball 2 was like novel number 11. And then I just went backwards, and I'm going forwards with other books. You gotta do multiple, you gotta do many. Even Brandon Sanderson, 10,
I think what happens is, as you grow, your characters also grow. Like, the character that you created initially was probably dumb as rocks.
Yes, number 1.
Or was naive or whatever. But you realize that, no, man, this character cannot be this naive. And he can't just be a good guy for being a good guy's sake. Like, there's no such. Like, he must have reasons why he believes in this. Like you know that thing of Batman not using guns?
Yeah.
It makes sense because that's the thing that killed his parents. So it makes sense.
Yeah. Definitely. But actually, find out you bring up a world building element that actually involved my books. The first draft of Jin's War was a shorter book, lot more action, but over time, do you know what I realized? I had written a bunch of world building stuff, and I think this is something every writer should do. You have to ask questions of your book. You have to challenge. I think that's one thing that modern writing has really improved, is that you have to ask questions of your book. Like, for example, one of my characters, the character's name is Naya, right? And she kind of lives this dual life, where she's this cool, popular kid. Everyone loves her, right? But on the inside, she's kind of harsh. She's kind of brutal. and she's kind of like a fight junkie actually, but you wouldn't know it because she's like this adorable person. And when I wrote the first book, right, and I was like, okay, cool, here's the book, it's done, I'm really happy with it. And then later on, I asked myself questions. Okay, all these things I've said, right, did I tell or did I show? Okay, I said she's got a dual personality, which is why her spiritual animal has got two heads because of the positive and the negative. Cool. Show me in the book where that shows that happens. Couldn't find it. I hadn't written it yet because it was in my head. It wasn't on the page.
Right.
Then I have another character called Paige, right? I said because she was like a white girl in an Asian country, she was kind of bullied a bit. And I was like, cool. Where is that in the book? Because I know you say it happens, but what, must the audience just believe you? Do you know what I mean?
So you had to include it?
Yes. So I rewrote my first 3 chapters, and so now, and it's so nice because what ended up happening was that I ended up, my book probably didn't fit into the theories that I'd been creating with all our stuff, right? But then when I started rewriting some of these chapters and starting adding new chapters to make that part make sense, boom, the book suddenly, it clicked.
Did it change your entire story, or it just made it make more sense? That's all.
It made sense.
Oh,
it's like remember, like this was like the cooking a chicken without spicing.
Right.
It was this white piece of chicken. You could eat it. It had a beginning, middle, end. You could eat it.
And that's one of the reasons. You remember when you were asking me earlier on whether my stuff is finished? One of the reasons my stuff is not as finished is because of stuff like that. I would get an idea. I'm like, flip. I had to add this in now here before I release this thing, because I'm not saying I should wait too long and get analysis paralysis. I'm just saying that there are certain things that there's certain questions that still have to be answered first for this thing to actually make sense.
You have to attack your book. I one of the best things I ever did was leave a gap. I left a gap between my book. Stephen King in his autobiography on writing, he says, leave your book alone for 2 months. I say, number 1, yes, do that. But then after your 3rd or 4th draft, leave it alone for even longer.
Yes. And go read stuff.
Yeah.
Explore stuff. Go back, come back and read that thing and see if it still hits the way it did before.
Yeah. I think your book you should even consider your book not being fun for you after the first read through, after like the 10th read through, because
yes.
And then what you should do once is something actually, again, with Jin's War. I'm so happy with myself, so proud of this book, is that legitimately I read it so many times that the book wasn't fun for me, right? And then I rewrote it again to make it more fun for me. And I realized...
Yeah, because ultimately, if it's not fun for you, then who is it going to be fun for?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, the second rewrite was made it fun for strangers as well. Like, I think if you guys were to read it, I think you'd have fun with it now than before, because there are more plot beats. And also, don't be afraid. This is something I learned, though. Something I learned from reading Brandon Sanderson. And I've realized, and I'm like, oh, I'm so fucking dumb. Don't be afraid. Because sometimes what happens is you feel so artsy, but sometimes don't be afraid to be, I don't use the word childish, but mainstream. Like this man with his writing style, with his cliffhangers. You're like, oh, but cliffhangers can be so corny. Nah, dog. Write this shit like you out here to get a paycheck.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I'm like, this man, because I legitimately thought what writing was, oh, characters do stuff, and that's kind of what happens. You know what I mean? And then the climax kind of happens on its own. But no, this man wrote stuff in such a way that it really peaked. And like you were like, next
I know the kind of writer that you're talking about, like because everything has already been thought out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's already fascinating on its own, like the world building, for instance.
Yeah.
Even if characters do the corniest stuff throughout the entire thing, it doesn't feel too corny because the world building itself fascinated you so much that it feels unique. And I think that's why America has a lot of police procedurals where there's always that one person with like ADHD, or like it's Monk, or it's the guy from Numbers, or like this guy who's a specialist at something, and it's in the police department, but has a bit of a quirk to him, like
And then how then the quirk will either be like with Monk, the quirk is its own problem. and then will sometimes hinder the case, or like but unlock the case at the same time. And there'll always be a false solution in the beginning, in the middle, somewhere where they
Yeah.
like arrest the wrong guy, but then the main character knows something's not right with this case. I'm
Yes.
literally watching that right now, actually. It's something I just discovered recently, and I'm, it's so, it's so noise in the background, but I love it. It's called High Potential. It's about some lady who's like really intelligent, and she uses her intelligence to like solve cases.
Oh
It
yes,
is,
I saw that. Apparently, it's based on a like it's not an original series. It's sort of like an adaptation of
oh,
a Spanish one or something like that. I saw a scene where someone like the lady I think messed up with like like these boards are from like
yes,
from
that's how it starts. Yes, the
yeah.
police board. Yes,
The cop was like, "Who did this?" And then the lady was like, "No, the reason I did this is because this doesn't make sense. This doesn't
Mm,
add up." Then she
yes,
started explaining to them what happened. Right? That's what you're talking about.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I, I saw a clip of that a few days ago on YouTube.
Mhm. And then what you do is you show something early on that's actually relevant for later, and then you're like, oh, that thing we saw before, and then you go back, and that's the formula that they follow. It's painfully generic, but fantastic.
It's
It
Sherlock
works.
Holmes, bro. It's just
Yeah,
it's just another version of Sherlock Holmes. It's just Sherlock Holmes.
yeah,
That's what it is.
yeah. I know it's procedural 101. Like I won't even say it's great, dude. Monk was hilarious. What else?
Yeah, but what I'm
What's
just
the
trying to
one?
say is there used to be a lot of those kind of series, like
Yeah,
a lot of those.
yeah, remember Vincent D'Onofrio was in Law and Order at some point?
Yeah.
Not Special Victims, High Crimes was a
Yes.
weird name. It was something weird. Criminal Intent, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, Criminal Intent. I think that's the original one, is it not?
I don't think so. I think the OG was called Law and Order, and then Criminal Intent was its own thing. I think it had like only a few seasons. I don't know if it was cancelled. I just know that Vincent D'Onofrio was clever. He was basically the OG Luther. Look it up, man. It was great.
No, no, I do know that D'Onofrio was in it for a while actually.
Yeah,
So I don't
he
know
had
if
his
he was
own
the
one.
face. I don't know if it was the face of it or what, but
No, he wasn't the face of it. It was a side thing. It wasn't a main thing. I
oh.
promise you, it wasn't a main thing. It was a
And there was
side thing.
Special Victims Unit.
Yes, and that kind of took over at some point.
Yeah, isn't that the main one now?
Yeah, that's basically the main one. I don't even know if actual Law and Order still exists.
I don't know either,
Because
bro.
OG Law and Order was just called Law and Order.
Dum 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 dum.
Dong! Yeah.
Dum 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 dum. Dum 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 dum. Dick Wolf, bro.
Yep. And it's
No.
still the funniest thing whenever you see, like, I wonder who it could be. Random guy, Brad Pitt, random guy. I wonder.
I've told you before that wouldn't it be great that you find out that actually Brad Pitt is not the one that did this? Like
Turns out he was actually an extra. He was just sweeping that day. That's what he was doing.
Exactly.
Stuff like that was hilarious.
Yeah, but we fought for it back then, bro.
Yeah, sometimes the person wasn't famous yet. And other times they were. You were like, dude, that's the dude. Where's my car guy? I remember him in the background.
Yeah,
I bet you he has lines.
I don't want to lie to you. At a point, man, when I started seeing people on Law and Order, I was like, "Hey, the fellow." It's kind of like the Dancing with the Stars thing, when you're like, "Ish, if you're here, then."
I hear you. Even though some actors actually volunteered. Apparently, the Robin Williams one, he was like, "I'm such a fan of the show. Can I please be in it?"
Yeah, but look, Robin Williams is Robin Williams, guys.
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
if it's him, then you know that.
Yeah, you're not saying no to him, yeah.
Yeah, like when he was on Friends with Billy Crystal, like you know that they just did it because they could.
Because they could.
Yeah.
They're just out here living. What did they say about Snoop Dogg again? He's in an open world game and he's just doing the side missions.
Hey, bro, that dude is everywhere, bro.
That's basically what Robert Williams was doing, just doing side missions because he could.
Yeah.
R.I.P. to a legend.
Anyway.
Yeah, man. Oof, yeah, it's 11 o'clock. You gotta go do your stuff. Yeah.
To me, he's one of the best actors.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he really was.
All right, guys. So basically, this is me, and let us know if these sessions where him and I just talk off the cuff, and if you guys have any ideas or any things that you guys would like us to talk about with regards to writing, directing, acting, world building, or anything of that nature. So, is there anything you want to say, Rob, before we close?
No. Just support us if you can, please. Because we're doing amazing things out here. You got to give us a shot. Hello?
Either you checked out 100 films of you checked out our movie reviews, or you checked out 7 Up, or you checked out whatever else that we've been doing. I'm sure one of them has. But anyway, from myself, Kuto, Mr.Extrodin,
thanks so much, guys.
And Rob Sibeko, we shall see you guys on the next one.
All right, see you, man.